Okay, welcome everyone to the BAPT conference session on typological aspects of the drama triangle by Vicky Varner. My name's Nicholas Toko, and I'm a trustee on the BAPT board. Really great to see everyone here today. The drama triangle maps people in conflict with the roles of persecutors, victims, and rescuers. This experiential session invites attendees to produce a creative representation of their conflict roles, identifies remedies, and maps typological preferences to these roles. Sounds very exciting, and without further ado, I'm going to pass you on to Vicky Jo. Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you, Nick. All right, so let me get my share screen going here. There it is. There. There. Okay, can everybody see that? Yeah, thumbs up. Yes, great. Okay. So hi, everybody, and welcome. My topic today, as Nick said, is typological aspects of the drama triangle. So greetings from Great Britain in the Yorkshire region where I am at the moment. I love presenting for BAPT, and I do miss those in-person conferences, but I'm delighted we can still meet virtually. So as we get underway, let's design our alliance with one another on this Zoom session. Here are some agreements I'd like us to work with. First of all, let's all be on camera. I realize some people are camera shy, but it means a lot to be able to see people's faces. So do me a favor and be visibly present so we can try to create a live conference experience together. Will you raise your hand and wave if you agree to that? Yes, 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 I'm seeing those hands. Terrific, thank you. Okay, next, please have some loose paper and something to write and draw with. I'll be asking you to use them during an exercise later. Show of hands. Yes, 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 great, okay. Try to have room to stand up and move around if possible. Show of hands, not gonna be possible. Some people may not be able to, but hopefully you can, okay. Be willing to get messy. I have breakout rooms and an art activity planned, so I hope you're up for it. Show of hands. Okay. Now this session is going to, you hit the right button. This session is going to move fast because I plan to cover a lot of ground and squeeze in some activity too. You're going to feel robbed, I say, about how short this session is. Please consider it a tantalizing taste of what is normally a bigger process and experience, and later on, I'll have an offer for you to do more. Just so you know where we're headed, this session is all about the drama triangle, its history, the model, its earmarks. I hope to give you an experience of the triangle and to update you on later developments. I hope you're ready. And as we get underway, I'd like to thank all the people working behind the scenes to make this session possible. Everyone at BAPT, President Catherine, and Nick, who's emceeing for us today. If you have any tech problems, please turn to Nick for help. You can message him privately through the chat window. I won't be able to help you. So, who am I? Well, I'm Dr. Vicky Jo. Yay! I earned my PhD in in-depth psychology. I'm an MBTI master practitioner who qualified in 1996. I'm a certified inner-strength practitioner through Linda Behrens. I've logged more than 150 hours in live workshops with John Beebe. I'm currently the senior copy editor for a leading Jungian journal out of Los Angeles. I'm a former university professor at the Philosophical Research Society. I'm a professional life coach with a PC status through the ICF, and more that I'm skipping over. And now I'd like to get to know you. First, let's have a brief poll about who's familiar with the drama triangle. Nick, have you got that poll ready for us?
Yes, I'm just going to launch it now.
Okay. So you have three options. You've never heard of it. You vaguely remember that from years ago, or the model is quite present and familiar to me. So I'll invite everyone to go in and vote. And we have 100% participation. So Nick, can you end the poll and show those results? Okay, so we have about a third of the crowd has never heard of it. About a third of the crowd vaguely remembers it from many years ago, and about a third of the crowd thinks the model is quite present and familiar to me. So that's quite a range of responses. So on the basis of those responses, and Nick, you can stop sharing the poll now.
Okay, stop sharing. Is that okay?
Yep. Stop sharing. Make it go away. Still on my screen. There we go. All right, let's see. So on the basis of those responses, I'm going to provide a fast-paced, high-level overview and context for the concept and model. So the drama triangle is a social model of human interaction proposed by Stephen Karpman. The triangle maps a type of destructive interaction that often occurs between people in conflict. In 1968, encouraged by Eric Berne himself, the creator of transactional analysis, Stephen Karpman wrote an article describing the drama triangle. The idea was widely taken up within transactional analysis and also beyond it. Karpman used triangles to diagram conflicted or drama-intense relationship interactions. The drama triangle reveals correlations between personal responsibility and power in conflicts. So the drama triangle consists of 3 archetypal roles: victim, rescuer, and persecutor. Now, we've all seen ourselves as victims at one time or another, and some of us truly have been victimized. However, it is an attachment to the role of victim that creates the potential for drama. Now, most of us have chosen to rescue another, and there are healthy ways to rescue, such as a firefighter saving someone from a burning building. However, when we get attached to the role of rescuer, we usually attract a victim who's also attached to being victimized. This sets up 2 sides of the drama triangle. Now, the third position is the persecutor. Now, we've all acted as persecutors, and this role is not pleasant to look at in ourselves. Now, traditional persecutors are bullies who go looking for a weakling to victimize in order to make themselves feel strong. Now, we're immersed in drama triangles and grew up having them fed to us as fairy tales. In his original paper, Karpman employed the story of Little Red Riding Hood, with the wolf and the woodsman all playing the 3 roles. Or here we have the tale of Snow White in her role as the victim, the wicked stepmother in her role as the persecutor, and of course, the dashing, handsome prince who rescues her. Karpman placed these roles on this inverted triangle and referred to them as being 3 archetypal aspects or faces of drama. Within the conflict, persecutor and rescuer enjoy one-up positions, as shown, while the victim suffers in the one-down position. Now, transactional analysis uses the term discounting to describe statements that are either minimizing or exaggerating, and each role in the drama triangle involves significant discounting of reality. Typically, the victim discounts their own ability to think and problem solve, and they often blame intense feelings for why it's okay for them not to problem solve. The rescuer discounts the other person's ability to think and problem solve, and the persecutor discounts the feelings of the other persons. Now, earmark or typical phrases can be affiliated with each of these roles. Here is a collection of several. See whether you can identify which role any given phrase would be associated with. For instance, I'm afraid to say anything is the voice of the victim. You always get it wrong, is the voice of the persecutor. If they just do what I say, they'd be happy, is the voice of the rescuer. So I'd like you to take out a piece of paper and hand draw a drama triangle with one point facing downward. Label the corners. Okay, now write down a typical statement or two that is associated with each of the three roles. So when you inhabit the persecutor role, what's going on? And as you come up with sentences for the persecutor, their overriding message is, it's all your fault. And then when you're in the rescuer role, what's happening? And as you think of words for the rescuer, their overriding message is, let me help you. And last, when you inhabit the victim role, what's going on? And as you generate statements for the victim, the overriding message is, poor me. So come up with some of your own phrases and write them by the labels. And specific examples are really helpful. And I'm going to give you 2 whole minutes to do that. Okay, that's 1 minute. Okay, so finish writing up that last phrase or word. And stop. So I want to provide you with some sample phrases that others have contributed. So alongside the persecutor, we see things like, why do you keep doing this? Or what's the matter with you? While along rescuer, we see, I offered my help and I did the work for them. And with the victim, we see, I'm so tired and it's not my fault. Now, one of the roles that you wrote words by may have a longer list than the others do. It might be the one that you're most familiar with. Now, Karpman described how these 3 roles are not undertaken in an earnest, honest manner to resolve a presenting problem, but instead are used fluidly and switched between by these actors in ways that pursue unconscious goals and agendas. The outcome is that players are left feeling frustrated and entrenched with little or no change made to the presenting problem, and the conditions give rise to the situation remaining unaddressed. So if you have space to move, I'm going to invite you to create a triangle on the floor and to place little markers down there to represent the 3 corners of the triangle. So you might tear a piece of paper into 3 bits and label them victim, rescuer, persecutor, or maybe put 3 items down to indicate them like shown here. Now, if you don't have room or the ability to get up and move, which is a shame, then use the paper you've drawn that triangle on and use your fingers to walk and stand in each of the 3 positions. See, I'm trying to have you embody the role as much as you can. Now, as you stand and prepare for the exercise, think about yourself in these 3 roles as I describe them in greater detail. Think about, when do I slide into these roles? What triggers that role for me? What is the triggering event? We want to have you locate these 3 positions within yourself. So when you feel ready, move to the spot on the triangle that represents the victim. Now, the victim in this model is not intended to represent an actual victim, but rather someone feeling or acting like one. So the victim seeks to convince themselves and others that they cannot do anything. Nothing can be done. All attempts are futile despite trying hard. In actuality, they covertly avoid real change. The victim stance is, poor me. The victim feels persecuted, oppressed, helpless, hopeless, powerless, ashamed, and seems unable to make decisions, solve problems, take pleasure in life, or achieve insight. So they seek help, attracting rescuers to save the day, who in reality will perpetuate the victim's negative feelings and leave the situation broadly unchanged. So from this position on the triangle, adopt a pose and make a face, just an exaggerated caricature that represents who you are when you inhabit the victim role. And now speak aloud 1 or 2 of the statements that you might make when you're in this role. Repeat something from your list, or maybe something you've heard somebody else say. Just everybody speak aloud at once.
Leave me alone.
And now close your eyes and invite your unconscious to provide you with an image that represents the victim in your mind, a metaphor, motif, or symbol. Don't force it. Just allow that image to come into your mind and gaze at this image for just a few seconds. And when you're ready, shake off that roll. They call it de-rolling, and move to the next stop on the triangle, and let's embody the rescuer next. So the rescuer says, "Let me help you." A rescuer feels guilty if they do not come to the rescue. They are unconscious enablers. And when they focus their energy on someone else, it allows them to ignore their own anxiety and issues. Now, this rescuing keeps the victim dependent, and it doesn't provide the victim with permission to fail and experience the consequences of their own choices. So the rewards derived from the rescuer role are that focus is taken off the rescuer, who gets to feel good simply for having tried, and then justified for having negative feelings toward the other actors upon failing. Ultimately, a frustrated rescuer becomes angry and becomes a persecutor when their help fails to achieve change. So from this position on the triangle, again, adopt a pose and make a face, an exaggerated caricature that represents who you are when you inhabit the rescuer role. And speak aloud one or two of the statements you might make when you occupy this role, or just repeat something you've heard somebody else say. Just everybody all at once.
Yeah, let me do that for you.
And again, close your eyes and invite your unconscious to provide you with an image that represents this rescuer role in your mind, a metaphor, motif, or symbol. Don't force it, just allow that image to come into your mind and gaze at this image for just a few seconds. Okay, shake off the rescuer role and move to the last position on the triangle. And let's now embody the persecutor. The persecutor. This can be a troublesome role to adopt, so you may simply have to fake it. If you must, pretend you've been cast as the villain in the school play or a TV show or a movie you like. The persecutor insists it's all your fault. Their stance tends to be controlling, blaming, critical. Oops. I'm going to get lost. Oh dear, sorry. I'm hitting the wrong thing. That's what's the problem. Okay, sorry about that. I'm gotten off. Just hang in there, stay in the role, keep feeling your way into it. And I'm going to get down there eventually. I must have hit something that took me to the top. Okay. Nope, not yet. You know, Mercury went retrograde today, so I'm going to go into persecutor and blame Mercury retrograde. Okay. Okay, the persecutor says it's all your fault. So their stance tends to be controlling, blaming, critical, oppressive, angry, rigid, authoritarian, and or superior. So again, from this place on the triangle, adopt a pose and make a face, an exaggeration that represents who you are when you occupy the persecutor role. And speak aloud one or two statements you might make when you inhabit this role, or maybe repeat something you've heard somebody else say, just everybody all at once.
Gosh, you're useless.
And now close your eyes and invite your unconscious to provide you with an image that represents this role in your mind, a metaphor, motif, or symbol. Don't force it. Simply allow that image to come into your mind and gaze at this image for just a few seconds. And now I'll invite you to shake off that roll, de-roll, and then move into the neutral center of the triangle where you can witness the entire drama playing out around you. And from there, let me provide an overview of the entire dynamic. Feel free to direct your attention to each of the roles as I describe these dynamics in more detail. So a drama triangle initially forms when a person adopts the role of a victim or persecutor. And then this person feels the need to enlist other players into the conflict. A rescuer is encouraged to enter the situation. These enlisted players adopt roles, and various scenarios then transpire. The victim might turn on the rescuer, for example, while the rescuer begins persecuting. And the persecutor may feel blamed and become defensive and switch roles to become a victim, in which case the victim may also switch roles and become a persecutor. The drama lies in the switching. It's the vital component that keeps the triangle dramatic and alive. So now I'll invite you to return to your seat as I tell you a bit more. So participants tend to occupy a habitual role when they enter drama triangles. That role was established in their family of origin. Even though each participant has a role with which they strongly identify, once the triangle activates, participants rotate through all three positions. So this pattern of attack, defense, and counterattack as shifting roles is archetypal. In the language of transactional analysis, this is considered a game. Now I'll invite you to bring out art supplies of some kind and just quickly sketch the metaphor, motif, or symbol that came to your mind for each of those three positions. And I'll give you merely 1 minute to do that.
How are you doing? Don't feel good. Tell me about it. You gotta go get down. Are you hospital? Don't feel good?
All right, so pens down again. And I want you to consider which of the three positions you would like to explore during the rest of the session. Time won't allow us to work on all three today, so which of them is calling out to you? And once you choose the role to work on, I'll invite you to copy and enlarge the symbol of the role you've chosen onto a fresh sheet of paper. I'm going to give you a generous 3 minutes to do that and to amplify it in whatever way Psyche asks of you. So spill some ink, rub in some color, let your unconscious guide your hand and see what it generates. Okay, you have 1 minute remaining. And 30 seconds remaining. Okay, and time's up. Now I'm going to come off presentation mode in a moment. And when I tell you, I would like everyone to hold your image up to the camera because it's a treat to see the variety of what people have created and enjoy our unique individual creations. So let me see if I can stop sharing. There we go. I see some pretty faces. So when you hold it up, you have to hold it so it's not too close and not too far away. And be sure you peek around so you see everybody else's. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, look at that. Oh, isn't that great? Oh my goodness. This is fun. I can kind of guess what the role is. Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. All right. Thank you. Thank you. I always get off track at this point. Now, we're so short for time on today's call that I'm going to skip a demo and just throw you all into the deep end of the lake for pairs and shares and just trust what happens. But there's a little bit of setup first. So let me go back into my PowerPoint. So let me do that. Come back. Come back. Okay. There it is. All right. So in preparation for the breakout rooms, I have 5 guidelines for us to follow. Most importantly, avoid storytelling. Do not tell your partner the story of the triangle. That just makes a new triangle. So leave that temptation behind, put the stories aside, and set your attention on the artwork instead, as if you were entering an art gallery and seeing a masterpiece for the first time. Let the image speak. Let the image tell its story. This will be a whole new muscle for most of you, but I want you to meet the image on its own ground and listen to its own language. I'm going to provide you with some possible questions you can try, but notice how the work affects you right off the bat. Then reflect on what is in the image. Everything has a reason for being there, so don't add anything or take anything away. Simply come into relationship with your partner's image and engage with it. Allow your gaze to take it all in for a moment and see what parts of it want to speak to you, address you. And listen with the curiosity of a child. Don't try to be the smartest person in the room. Keep yourself to yourself. That means don't give advice or fancy that you're an art critic. Now, you won't have time for long introductions, so just get right to the task at hand and make the most of it. Now, as I promised, here are some sample questions that you can try out. Sometimes people grab their mobile phones and take a snapshot of the questions so they can refer to it when this image vanishes. So I'm going to take a pause here and give you a chance to do that. Okay, hopefully people were able to grab snapshots or memorize all of them if you have that talent. I don't. And for the breakout room, you only have 3 minutes each, which is a total of 6 minutes. So we're going to warn you at the halfway mark to switch so you don't have to remember. And Nick, are you ready to go with those breakout rooms?
I am. So there are 7 people left in the room. We have, so I'll create the breakout rooms accordingly. So just bear with me.
We can drop
Great.
Rob out.
I'm going to create 3 rooms, so there will
Yeah.
be a trio. Yeah. Just bear with me. And it's 6 minutes, yes?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to open all the rooms. Please join a room. Robin, I've counted you in, so if you could join a room, please. If not, I can move someone. Thank you. Okay, I think they've all gone.
Mary, how are you? If you just a moment, I just realized.
I'm waiting to see those faces come back in. You can come back on camera, that might help. I know that was brutally short. Brutally short. So what's coming up? What are you discovering? Anything? Anna, I caught you with your mouth full.
We were right in the middle of something, actually. I would love to hear the rest of it, because our vision of hero or a rescuer was quite different. Mine was the sort of archetypal hero, riding on his horse and rescuing the damsel in distress. But there was another image of hero that was being described, which was much more dark, almost, and sinister. So I'd love to hear the end of that and understand why there's such dichotomy between the 2 rescuer images.
Great.
It was very interesting because mine was the opposite one. There were the dark, unpleasant looking thing. But actually, I think what you described, Shirley, was very similar to what mine was ultimately doing as well.
So between the 2 of you, do any of these statements remind you of something in typology? So with that in mind, I mean, I'll tell you what to consider is how the victim's voice tends to come from a place of inferiority. So it seems subordinate or one down to the other 2 roles in the triangle, while the persecutor speaks from a position of power, but it's a dark power, implying it comes from a shadowy place. And then the rescuer also comes from a superior position, but it's a benevolent role. So with that in mind, let's introduce a basic type scheme into the picture. So Jung's original model postulated a superior function, which nowadays we call dominant, and he also defined the auxiliary. And then he suggested there were 2 inferior functions, which we now call the tertiary and the inferior. So following that, he claimed there was a shadow area, which he did not define further with typology. Now, if we consider this scheme, the role of the victim may correspond to our 2 inferior functions, the tertiary and inferior, while the rescuer may belong to the dominant or the auxiliary, our 2 superior functions. Now, the persecutor seems to occupy the shadow region of the psyche, which may include the inferior function. Now, if we move into the domain of John Beebe's whole type model, we can get a little more specific. It seems as though the victim could be represented by the eternal child archetype in its deflated phase, sometimes called the wounded child. And the victim could also be the anima or animus, which lacks capability, thus manifesting as helplessness. The rescuer probably belongs to the good parent, or perhaps hero archetype in Beattie's framework. That seems obvious. As for the persecutor, it seems likely represented by the opposing personality or the critical parent, the 5th and 6th positions respectively. Now, so far I've been describing the drama triangle manifesting in the outer world with 3 real human beings occupying the roles, but consider that a drama triangle can also happen inside an individual psyche with inner figures facing off in each of these 3 roles. Sometimes I have my clients personify their inner voices, the different parts of themselves, and I often hear a drama triangle in full flight when these inner voices are heard. So now I'm hoping to pop you back into the same breakout rooms, and this time discuss your roles from a typological perspective and see if you can correlate a function and maybe an archetype with that role that you've been working on. This time, Nick, can we do it for 4 minutes?
Okay, just bear with me. Okay, that's all done. Do you want me to open the rooms?
Yes, please.
Thanks, everyone. Please join the room.
And we're back.
Do you want to stop the recording, Nick? Okay, once again, I know that was brutal. I'm going to keep going because I'm looking at the clock and I'm not going to make it if I don't. So let me tell you that, yeah, the clock. If my clicker works, that there's a handout for today's session, and that can be found at this address. That link takes you to a URL that asks for your email address and then provides you with the handout. So Robin's going to pop that link into the chat right now so you can grab it from there. Alternatively, here is a QR code that you can use to go there directly if you know how to use those. Now, inside this handout is a brief essay about the downsides of the drama triangle and a discount coupon for a chance to go deeper and get some coaching around any drama triangles you might be struggling with. This is a 3-session coaching program titled Wrangle Your Drama Triangle. So I want to talk quickly about remedies for the drama triangle. Many contradictions have been put forward, and most formulas entail consciously shifting to a different response that avoids discounting and involves accounting in its stead, thereby exhibiting ongoing and active curiosity. So in that case, victim turns into self-assured, persecutor becomes challenger, rescuer becomes coach. Or in the winner's triangle, which was authored by A.C. Choi, he proposes these conscious alternatives. The persecutor becomes proactively assertive, the rescuer becomes responsive, and the victim becomes vulnerable. Now, in The Power of TED, which was a book published in 2009, TED stands for the empowerment dynamic, which flips the triangle on its head. In the new empowerment triangle, the victim adopts the alternative role of creator. The persecutor is viewed as a challenger, and they enlist a coach instead of a rescuer. And of course, this is my favorite remedy. Now, if we had time, I'd explore a contradictory view of the role that you chose to work with today for when you are authentic and at your best, and then draw a new image to symbolize that role. And in fact, when this session ends and while the material's still fresh in your mind, feel free to create a new image called at my best in order to lock in any insights you may be having. It'll help leave today's experience on a positive note. I do have a little more theory to share. For those of you who work in corporate cultures, a researcher framed how drama-based leaders create organizational cultures of drama. And persecutors are likely to be in leadership positions generally, and a persecutor culture goes hand in hand with cutthroat competition, fear, blaming, and an increased risk of lawsuits. Victim cultures lead to low morale as well as conflict avoidance, and rescuer cultures are characterized by high dependence on the leader, low initiative, and low innovations. And some newer developments have transpired with the model since its introduction. In 1987, Clarkson added the bystander role, which becomes the audience for the drama triangle. So the bystander is ostensibly outside the drama, but impacts the drama in a variety of ways. So this represents the person who is bystanding, aware there's a problem, but chooses to do nothing. So Clarkson wrote, bystanders wash their hands like Pontius Pilate, knowingly condemning an innocent to harm while publicly blaming guiltlessness. So by choosing not to be part of a solution, they passively keep the problem going from a collective cultural standpoint. Then in 2022, another addition was made, redefining the bystander from being merely an onlooker to an integral element in the drama triangle, thereby transforming the model into a three-dimensional drama pyramid. So culture is inculcated and embedded in our psychological makeup, and oppressive social norms are often perpetuated by this means. So we're seeing that in our zeitgeist at the present moment as people struggle with social change through Black Lives Matter and shifting gender identifications, including personal pronouns. So the catch cry of "that's not what I grew up with" is often asserted by people trying to maintain the status quo of a social norm they're accustomed to, thereby reinforcing the triangle. Now, because this role perpetuates collective standards, we might affiliate it with the collective unconscious, and perhaps specifically in Beebe's parlance with the cynics, the critical parent who enforces cultural tradition, or perhaps the archetype of the demonic, the role that lies furthest from consciousness. I see we are nearly out of time. Thank you for your attention and for participating today. I know it was fast-paced, roller coaster, brutal for time, but it was a pleasure to be with you. And I doubt if we have it, but I'm going to put up the possibility of questions. Thank you very much.
I mean, I'm fascinated by the bystander because in many ways, for example, I chose the rescuer, but I think part of the rescuer archetype is that, you know, recognition for being the person that solves the problem and rescues the damsel. So almost like the bystander is truly perpetuating that rescuer's need for recognition for being the rescuer almost. So it's not, I mean, I can understand why it becomes part of a pyramid rather than being outside of the triangle.
Well, I think the rescuers, victims, and persecutors try to suck the bystander in. The bystander is just hanging on the outside. I'm thinking of police officers who used to not respond to domestic violence charges with people. They were just going to status quo. They're married and we're not going to touch it. And so, you know, getting the culture to change around these things is very different. I don't know that that's part of a game technically, but it's such an observation on the way the culture is right now that I didn't want to leave it out.
Mm-hmm. Well, within Germany, definitely they wouldn't intervene in it. It's still old school in that if there's a domestic violence situation, the German police would not intervene.
Yeah. Yeah, and by that means they maintain the triangle. So the woman who's a victim and the ostensibly woman and man, the genders aren't necessarily in stone, but they continue to be victimized.
I mean, there's so much talk at the moment about narcissistic personality disorder and narcissism generally. How does that relate to the triangle? Is the narcissist automatically, by definition, moving towards the persecutor role, but seeing potentially themselves as a victim, or B, in some circumstances, also the rescuer?
Exactly. I mean, I think you nailed it right there. I think there's a whole romp that goes around the triangle. I think for me, the whole deal about the narcissist role right now is it requires that victim. And so we see those two coming together and then of course calling for the rescue, etc. So I think it depends on that moment, whether the, narcissist in name is playing the victim or playing the persecutor or playing the rescuer.
Or it could be just a question of time in the narrative of the story of, the narcissist always goes through the same sort of series of events ultimately, whether they're love bombing or whether they're gaslighting. So maybe they're just literally shifting the role in what is the narrative of a narcissistic relationship.
Well, and those things you just named, the love bombing and, those could be plotted on the triangle.
Yeah. I mean, how often do people actually see themselves in these roles? How often do they recognize that they are locked into a dreaded drama triangle of some description? Because I guess by recognizing that, that's the opportunity to flip it on its head, as you said, from the TED book, which I found was very, very powerful when I read it a few years ago. But how often do people actually recognize their own role within the triangle?
I don't think most people do. I think when you're in it, you're just in it. That's why I talked about the family of origin, as you kind of, find your role when you're in your family, and then you perpetuate that role going forward. And it's usually only through therapy or coaching that people become conscious of how they are just automatically defaulting to those roles and they aren't helpful.
And also add as well, I think that's really interesting thought about how you can use it as different roles. So I mean, I'm a business consultant, but I'm also training as a Jungian analyst, and I've often find some analysts, well, students in particular, who come across as rescuers, and you can't say anything in front of a therapist without them trying to therapize you, if that makes sense, or to try and rescue you. And you want to say to them, look, it's just a thought. You don't have to rescue me. And what would, in your supervision as an analyst, the drama triangle is really interesting, because I think it's a useful way for therapists to reflect on themselves, that they're not trying to rescue a patient or client. They're a bystander watching the drama, but sort of maybe guiding the individual to, to find their own solution to the drama. But a lot of therapists do fill the role of the rescuer.
Yeah, I was in a training the other day with some newbies, and I went through that in my coach training, and they'll come in and they'll be like, I want to help everybody. I want to help anybody. And there's this, kind of almost bleeding heart helpfulness that is begging to get enmeshed in drama triangles.
Yeah. Okay, I'm mindful of time. Vicky, is it okay to turn off the recording now? Is there any final?
It sure is. Thank you so much. I think you gave me a little extra time, and I do appreciate it. I'm sorry this ran so fast. I obviously crammed way too much in, but I hope, excuse me, I hope you got something out of it, and it caused you to become a little conscious of the roles that you continually play.